we'd love to welcome everyone to tonight's Citizens Climate University. It's a weekly webinar program of Citizens Climate Lobbies that provides CCL supporters like you and I with access to in-depth training opportunities on topics relating to effective climate advocacy and climate change. I'm your host, Brett Cease, and tonight's topic is going to zoom into how all of us can use CCL's branded resources in our outreach more effectively. We're going to join CCL's marketing manager, Ashley Hunt-Martorano, and designer, Breanna Cooke, for a training that's going to walk you through and how to explore the many branded resources that CCL provides us as volunteers to help with our local outreach, including graphic design templates from Canva and our updated branding guidelines, just to give you a little teaser. A little bit of background behind our special guest tonight. We have the wonderful Breanna Cooke, good friend of mine, who's been a CCL volunteer since 2016 and is also our contract graphic designer for CCL CCE. And most of the graphics that you see out there representing CCL have been passed through Breanna's hands. So a big shout out, a lot of love to Breanna tonight for having that wonderful look and feel that we've all come to know and love, and really engineered from your own creative mind, Breanna. So we're so glad to have you here. And with Breanna is Ashley Hunt-Martorano. Ashley's been working with CCL since 2012 when she co-founded the Long Island, New York chapter after Superstorm Sandy. Drawing upon a background in psychology, political science, and environmental nonprofit management, Ashley started out her work at CCL by organizing the annual conferences and lobby days in Washington, D.C. to 2019. And now she is solely focused on being CCL's marketing manager, where she ensures the organization's character that inspired her to join CCL is evident in everything from our print, digital, and video resources, and now even on TikTok. So we are looking forward to having your expertise as well on the line tonight. And I'll just review 3 quick learning goals and then pass to our star performers. If we've done our job well after our hour together, you're going to have confidence in knowing where to find these resources. That's the biggest thing. We want to help highlight where you can find them in the first place. Community can be rather Byzantine at times, so let's help you locate what you're looking for. We also want you to help deepen your understanding on how and where to use them in your own development of local resources, really applying those brand guidelines to your own creative material. And then we want you to take action and find CCL's resources tonight and use these best practice recommendations in your own work. So we'll start with a little review of why it's important. We'll dive into where to find them again. We'll talk about our branding guidelines step by step with each of those important elements, and then close with some best practices. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Breanna and Ashley, and sit back, everyone. You're in for a real treat tonight in the meantime.
Great. Well, thanks, Brett. And thanks, everybody, for being here tonight to talk about branding and why it's important and how it might impact your work as a CCL volunteer. And I just want to also give a big thanks to Breanna for all of the work that she does for CCL. Brett was not kidding. Almost all of the CCL resources out there have passed through Breanna's hands. You know, we pay her to make things look beautiful for us and to, you know, have the resources that our volunteers need to get the work done, because the work that you guys are doing in the field is very important. And so we invest in that work. We invest in those assets. We invest in those resources by having Breanna, who's a professional designer, create those. And she's made my life easier by giving us great, beautiful designs to start with, so that then when I need a quick graphic for something, I know what it needs to look like. So it's really all thanks to the work that Breanna does, and a lot of the styles and, you know, conference graphics, different things that are out there have come from her work. So big thanks to her. And this presentation tonight is just beautiful because Breanna was involved in making it. So if you like these slides and the way they look, that's Breanna as well. So why is branding important? So put yourself in the shoes of your audience. If you're going to be reaching out to potential CCL volunteers, potential recruits, they're experiencing our organization for the first time. If they knew nothing about us at all, except for our name, and then we're, you know, the papers or the brochures or the documents that you're handing over to them if you meet them at a tabling event or a presentation, and they're looking at these things, what are they going to think about us? And so you kind of keep that in your mind, and that can kind of help you understand why having consistent branding is important for us. It's not just about making documents look nice, although that's part of it. It also can help you save time to have consistent branding. But it's the consistent look and message that just makes our organization consistent, and people can count on this being us. They know when they see these colors and these designs that it means something. We stand behind that. So a strong nonprofit brand can strategically advance our goals, our mission, and our impact. CCL benefits in many ways by maintaining a strong brand, and that includes that we are trusted and have loyal followers, such as yourselves. So social change organizations need volunteers and need great people in order to succeed. And strong brands attract the kinds of people that we need to advance our mission by consistently expressing why we matter in this space. We can increase our fundraising potential. If we look like a legitimate environmental climate organization, we can inspire people to get involved. And then those people might be willing to give us more of their time, their passion, and maybe their money to help us move forward with our cause. We can optimize outreach potential. So having a strong brand concept with design systems and tools put into place helps us be able to execute high quality on brand communications. So it creates consistency, and that increases brand recall and retention, which are kind of sciencey words, but basically mean that people will recognize that when they've seen us over and over again, they'll recognize, yes, that's them, that's that brand. So not only is the marketing more effective, but it also helps make our budget more efficient by being able to thrive off of that brand recall and retention. And then finally, it facilitates new opportunities. So when we've earned the trust of our audience, they're more likely to be open when we have calls for support or invitations to participate, or we're asking them to put their name behind our brand. So this means that the actions of everyone in our organization are strongly aligned with our brand's values. The words, the images, the experiences that you put into the world reinforces these. So there's a lot of benefits to us maintaining our strong brand. So with that brief intro, we're going to spend a few minutes showing you some examples of what resources are already available in community for you to just use right now. You could use them tomorrow at an event if you had it. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So we're going to give you some examples of the following resources and kind of explain where they live on community. And again, CCL Community is going to be your go-to place to find all of these. So we have handouts and leave-behinds, tabling resources, social media templates, PowerPoint and Google Slide templates, CCL branded merch, and then some miscellaneous materials like business cards, thank you cards, and more. So here are some handouts that you might use for lobbying or volunteer outreach at tabling events or at CCL chapter meetings for a variety of different things, explaining the Energy Innovation Act, welcoming new volunteers to the chapter, leaving behind at lobby meetings, leaving behind for your members of Congress or their staff, and then resources like the monthly calling campaign quarter-page flyer. So we have a lot of resources in English and Spanish as well. We have a great Spanish team that translates these for us, and that's a full-time job in and of itself. So we're glad to have folks on board that translate these resources, and we do try and make as many resources as possible available in Spanish as well. Okay, so we have a little video here that should play. Okay, yes, so this video is just showing you on community where you can go to find a lot of common resources. So you should look under the most common places if you're looking for specific resources would be under the Energy Innovation Act section. on community, and then scroll down just a little bit more on community, and there's a grassroots outreach section as well, and that has a ton of resources there. So those are two great places to start when you're looking at resources. You can see under there you've got the brand guidelines, which we're going to jump into in more detail in a couple of minutes. So here are some tabling resources that you can download. And then you can actually order some of these from your local print shop, or maybe an online print place like Vistaprint or Staples.com. First, in the background, we've got our big banner. You can get that in a couple different sizes, like a 4-foot banner or a 6-foot banner, if you want to put that at the bottom of your table or behind your table at a big event. We've got a template for constituent letters. We've got some signs that you can print that are text to join, so people can join without having to, pick up a pen and sign up on a clipboard if people are hoping to not have to touch anything in the era of COVID. That's a great sign to have at a tabling event. We also have brochures, and they're editable. And those are also available in English and Spanish. So if you live in an area with Spanish speakers, make sure you have some of those resources downloaded and at your table. And then finally, we have the Vote for Climate yard sign. So you can get that printed, or you can actually buy it online on our store, and you can have those at tabling events. You can stick them in the grass. We've got so many pre-made resources for social media. So if you're running a CCL chapter social media account, or maybe just your own personal account, and you're talking about some of your CCL work, check what we've got available online, because it could save you a lot of time and stress. So if you're trying to figure out how to talk about the Energy Innovation Act on social media, we've got a toolkit with different designs available. We link to all of CCL's social media posts about the Energy Innovation Act when it got reintroduced earlier this year in that document. So if you're looking for like a repository of like all of our previous social posts when the bill got reintroduced, you can go and click and find those there. For example, if you want to see how we talked about it when it got reintroduced. We've got a similar carbon pricing is popular social media toolkit. It's the one with Janet Yellen on the front there, which you might consider like a hall of fame of who supports carbon pricing. And we've got tons of videos, graphics, quote treatments, and links to social media posts in that toolkit as well. So next, I just want to point out the Canva templates. So we're going to dive into that in more detail in just a moment. And then finally on the screen, we've got virtual postcard designs that you might collect from your chapter members, so they can provide a statement and a photo. You can put that together in this little design that we've got, and then you can share that on social media and tag your representatives and senators. Okay, so just want to point out too, we've got some really fun social media assets that Breanna designed. These are animated GIFs. They're available on Instagram as stickers that you can access through the GIF sticker feature on Instagram in the stories. You can actually access them through some of the texting apps as well. So if you play around with it a little bit, you can access these stickers. They are uploaded through Giphy. So anytime you're able to see that Giphy is an option for picking animated GIFs, you can just search Citizens Climate or CCL, and our animated GIFs should pop up. And some of them are really fun, like Call Congress about climate change. So you can use those to encourage people to take action. And I just wanted to highlight some good chapters to say, great work, everybody. Some of the social media posts, because we see a lot of graphic design end up on social media, right? Because a lot of social media is about images. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the Fort Mill Rock chapter here. What they did was they took an Elon Musk tweet, they screenshotted it, and then they threw it in our Canva template designs, which we'll get into in a moment. And they put this great graphic together to talk about the carbon tax. In the middle here, this chapter, San Diego, had a meeting with their representative, Scott Peters, staffer, and they wanted to say thank you for that. So they did a Zoom screenshot, but they dressed it up with some of our templates and graphics. And then the Dallas-Fort Worth chapter, which I'm just going to give a little spoiler alert, is the chapter that Breanna is part of. So they get her additional graphic design expertise to do fun things there. But if you need to go and check some of the online Instagram accounts to get inspired maybe by what other chapters are doing, these are 3 chapters that are doing it right. And I want to commend them for using the templates and the branding guides to help drive the designs that they're sharing. So we have a bunch of different PowerPoint and Google Slide templates for you to start with if you've got a presentation to give in your community as well. So first, I recommend thinking about your audience. Is it general public, elected officials, students, business leaders? And then think about the message that you want to share with them. And that's going to help you determine which of the CCL branded presentations you're going to go with. So if you want a CCL branded presentation because you're recruiting CCL volunteers, you're going to use that one at the top. That one's got our CCL blue and green theme going on. If you're giving a presentation strictly about the Energy Innovation Act, then you're going to use that one in the bottom left because that's got the red, blue, and gray theme going on. And then the price on carbon, if you're just talking more generally about pricing carbon, you're going to use this green, this olive green, more themed slideshow. And we're going to talk in a few minutes. Breanna's going to go over sub-branding to help you make more decisions about when to use each of these slide decks. And we've got some miscellaneous materials on community too. So things like stickers that you can maybe get printed in bulk. Maybe you want to welcome new members to your chapter by giving them a sticker, or maybe you're going to have a contest for writing letters to the editor and you need some prizes. So stickers are always fun. So you can download those art files and you can then order them in bulk if you want. Young people do love putting stickers on their laptops and their water bottles, so it's a good recruitment thing for young people too. And then we've got some business card designs where you can download the design and edit it for your own contacts, and you can use those on CCL lobby days. And then, of course, thank you cards for if you're writing a thank you card to a member of Congress for meeting with you, or maybe if a business has endorsed the Energy Innovation Act, you want to thank them for that, you can use these thank you cards. And then of course, our price on carbon stickers are super popular as well. Okay, so we're going to talk about the branding guidelines now that we've kind of gone over the main categories of resources that you can find on community. So branding guidelines are really the touchstone in marketing that helps us keep our creative assets and messaging consistent across mediums and channels. So if looking back at all the things we just looked at, you could probably tell those all belong to CCL because there's consistency, there are design elements that are repeated throughout. It really builds our visual identity and persona with target audiences. It's not just the colors and the fonts, though, it's also the messaging and what we're saying that matters too. And I want you to know that our brand decisions are based on research and analyses that we've done. Some things were more like focus groups and some things were market research. So these decisions have been made by professionals, by professional designers and professional marketers. My boss, Leslie Beatty, is a professional marketer who used to work at Yahoo back when it was first starting. She worked at Sunrun when it was a startup company and there were only 6 employees. So her marketing experience and being able to make some of these decisions is very, very deep. So there's a reason behind the madness of the decisions we've made. So the branding guidelines are internal sets of rules to guide you when you're trying to create resources or assets for CCL. So we're going to show some examples and kind of highlight how the brand comes to life in each of these sections. So first off, the branding guidelines are available on community under the resources, grassroots outreach, brand guidelines trails. So you can find it there. You can also just simply search brand. If you just type brand into the search bar in community, it'll be the first result. I tested it today. This document is 33 pages long, so it's a long PDF, but it's basically the Bible of all things CCL for marketing. I actually have it printed out, and certain pages like the color palette are taped to my wall in my office because I reference it so frequently. So we describe in this document when to use what colors, fonts, photos, and logos. But I don't want you to get stressed out as we go through this document, because you don't have to actually be a graphic designer and make anything from scratch. We have Canva templates that are preset with these designs and follow these guidelines using the right fonts, the right colors, the right icons that you can use and you can edit. So Canva is a free web-based application that a lot of designers and social media marketers use. And we've got a great training video on Community that is available if you've never used Canva before. So you can create a free account and then access our templates, which are linked on Community. And so it's kind of scrolling through the video right now for some of the designs that are available. And these were all created by Breanna. You can see there's like, I don't know, 60 of them or something. And we have a couple different templates available. This is the square template, which you would use for Instagram. You can see that there's some screenshots for social media. There's some just big color blocks with text centered. There's designs for meeting events. So a lot of options, a good starting place. If you have a meeting you want to promote, you can click on a template, and then you can actually just start typing to change the words in these designs because it's editable. You can change the background, you can change the sizes. So these are the horizontal, which you would use for like Facebook or Twitter. And then these are the vertical ones. You would use these for like Instagram stories. And then here are the chapter logo templates. So you can actually make your chapter logo, and we're gonna talk about that in a couple minutes as well in more detail, why that's important, but that template exists there too. So I think Brett's going to put in the chat in a moment some of the links to these templates on Community, and then also the training video, which is I think 15 minutes long. If you are interested in using Canva, super user-friendly. There's a lot of training videos if you just Google them. And again, our training video gets you started. So highly recommend that. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ashley. So y'all probably noticed while that video was scrolling through Canva that some of the designs are with our good old CCL blue and green. Some of them were red, blue, and gray. There was even some purple in there. And that's because we've been developing some campaigns with sub-branding that live under the whole CCL brand umbrella. So I'm going to go into more detail, but when we're talking about the Energy Innovation Act, we'll use designs with what we call in CCL Republican red, Democrat blue, and CCL medium gray. When we're talking about carbon pricing more generally, we're going to use that dark olive and dark gray. We're talking to conservatives, we have a sub-brand for that too. We also have a campaign called the Far Middle. It focuses on bipartisanship and coming together. And you know what happens when you mix red and blue together? You get purple. So that's where our purple color scheme comes in. So let's take a look at these a little more closely so you understand what's going on. So like I said, the Energy Innovation Act focuses on that red, blue, and medium gray, but then we also use imagery. Sometimes it's a little bit faded out, but we focus on images that conveys everyday people and everyday life in a positive manner. So we choose images for this campaign that maybe show a bit of nostalgia or family or natural wonder as a reminder of why we're pushing for a price on carbon in the first place. We're focusing on the future we want to have, not the doom and gloom. And we also include some subtle details to distinguish between Democrats or Republicans. So like on our co-sponsor graphics, there's a blue frame around Democrats' photos, and there's a red frame around a Republican's photo. Or when we feature a quote from someone who's left-leaning, we put a blue bar across the top. And if they're right-leaning, we put a red bar across the top. So there's little subtle details that we add in there to ensure we're supporting the overall bipartisanship, Democrats and Republicans supporting this bill. We also use the grayscale version of our icons in this instead of the CCL branded green and blue ones. So that's the Energy Innovation Act. Now we have our carbon pricing leadership style, and I know Ashley touched on this a bit. So that's where we use that dark olive and dark gray. And you probably first saw it when we had that carbon pricing business statements document come out. And then maybe you might have seen it for that business advocates event. So that's when it first started appearing. And so it still matches our brand. It's still our brand colors, but we chose these colors because they're not directly associated with being Democrat or Republican. We're wanting to highlight support for carbon pricing and not specifically tie it to the Energy Innovation Act, but just carbon pricing. So that's why we use this green and dark gray. So this campaign, we feature photos that convey families, hardworking Americans, and what we want our future economy to look like. We also use photos of prominent individuals, and we try to get them when they're in action, like if they're speaking, versus like their posed headshots when it's possible. Most of the photos in this campaign, they get a grayscale treatment with a bit of a green overlay over a section of the photo. And this just helps tie this whole campaign together and lets the words speak a little more prominently. We're really striving to ensure that this campaign doesn't look either Republican or Democrat, but it's for everyone. So that said, we also recognize that there are times when you need a design that's clearly geared for a very specific audience. So we have a conservative sub-brand that uses our Republican red and our medium gray. We use the Democrat blue in there just a little bit as a supporting color to give a little bit of contrast, but we use it very sparingly when we're doing these graphics. So you'll see the layouts are kind of similar to some of our CCL blue, green, and gray ones, but the colors are focused on conservatives. And these styles, they're available in those Canva templates, but they really should just be used for events that are specifically for a conservative audience. As I mentioned, we have a campaign called the Far Middle. This campaign's a little quiet right now, just due to the pandemic and some other priorities, but it's really good to be aware of and understand why there's that purple swatch in our brand guide. So this campaign focuses on meeting in the middle, not the far right, not the far left, but the far middle. And so purple is what happens when you meet in the middle between red and blue. So this is one of the few places where we use what we call bipartisan purple. We did use it on our Big Tent Climate Talks brand because that's focused on coming together under one big climate umbrella. So we brought purple into that brand because its focus is coming together, meeting in the middle. So we use purple for very specific campaigns and we use it very sparingly outside of that. So keep that in mind in your outreach and any use of that color purple. Are any of you experienced video editors? Are some of your volunteers experienced video editors? Get in touch with Ashley and she will provide you with our video branding guidelines. This is what CCL's video editor uses to make all our CCL branded videos. And we're happy to share them with experienced video editors. It shows the styling for like opening graphics, captions, quotes, and the text in the lower third. Unfortunately, we don't have a user-friendly option for editing videos like we do with Canva designs. We might in the future. So for now, we just want to focus on video editors who have a little bit more experience. So reach out to Ashley if you guys are ready to do some of that video content.
Great. Yeah. So now I'm going to talk about CCL merch a little bit. As we mentioned when I referenced the miscellaneous stuff, we talked a little bit about stickers. So you can see these great stickers on someone's car. We've got the stickers on the water bottle. I know you might be distracted with the adorable dogs in the photo. I don't know whose dogs those are, but I love them and I want to be their friends. But there are also very professionally, beautifully designed stickers in that photo. I know it's hard to see them. We've got stickers on laptops. We've got some groups of stickers that got mailed out to volunteers. I think, Breanna, this is your chapter. You guys were welcoming some new volunteers to your chapter during COVID when you couldn't meet in person. So this was a way to get people hooked on CCL early on with some free stickers. And so these are available to where you can download those files. And then you can also like upload them to like a print shop, on the online print shop, and get them printed in bulk if you want, or you can get those stickers and more on our CCL Zazzle store. And so if you hit next slide, Brett, we have this store on Zazzle. You can just go cclusa.org/merch, and then you don't have to worry about like, you know, finding a print shop or whatever. You can order your stickers there. You can order some stickers in sets of like 4 or 20 or something like that. So they have different options. And so we did choose Zazzle because one thing we don't have time for at CCL, because, you know, we're a small nonprofit. I know we've grown a lot over the last year or two, but we are still relatively small. So we don't have a person on staff who can manage inventory, take orders from websites, package orders, mail orders out, and manage the inventory and make sure we've got enough of different sizes of shirts and all that. That's a lot of work. And so the great thing about Zazzle is there's no waste, because they only print things when you, as a person that's interested in this and wants a CCL shirt or a bumper sticker, they only print it when you order it. So there's no like inventory sitting in a warehouse anywhere. So that's why we use Zazzle, because we don't have to manage the inventory. We also don't have to manage like paying state by state taxes, because like all the tax laws are so different by every state, and Zazzle handles all of that accounting for us too. We get a very small commission. It's very, very small, but it's, you know, a little tiny bit addition to the marketing budget. The main reason, this is not like a fundraiser or anything for us, the main reason we do this is so that when you go to a CCL event, you have a CCL shirt like Breanna's wearing tonight. So you might want a CCL button or a bumper sticker for your car, a face mask. We've got sweatshirts, we've got phone cases, we've got all sorts of stuff. And we're open to merch ideas. If there's something you want to see in the store that's not there, you can email me. I have an email from a volunteer that I need to reply to. They're asking for one of those golf shirts that is like wicking, sweat wicking, you know, like a performance shirt. So I'm gonna help that out, because I guess there's gonna be some tea times over the summer that he wants to go and be able to talk about CCL when he's playing golf. So shoot me an email if there's a design or some kind of merch that you don't see that you want. Breanna and I try to check in like every couple months on our merch to see like, do we have a new design idea? Have we had any requests? Are there any styles that we need to retire? So we definitely want to make sure that you have the merch that you need out in the field to be able to brag about the work you do at CCL. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go through the branding guideline and talk about some different components of that. So I'm going to start with talking about logos. So you can download the logos by going to cclusa.org/logos. So our logos exude a bright, energetic personality that's full of vitality. The colors represent the world that we live in, and that's the thing that our volunteers are striving to save. We have 2 different versions of the logo. We have a square version, and then we have a horizontal version. And then I'll also mention, we do have a version of our logos that are for Citizens Climate Education, so CCE. So within all of our styles of different logos we have a version for CCL, version for CCE. So we've got a square CCL, a square CCE, a horizontal CCL, horizontal CCE, and then we've got them all in white, black, and color. So lots of different versions of logos. So before you go to download the logos, make sure you think about which logo it is that you need. So the logos consist of 2 parts, the CCL symbol, so like the graphic, and then the word mark, so the actual word Citizens Climate Lobby. And so it should be used on all materials, both of them together, right? Whether it's for print, digital, or mobile. So try and use our logo, please, as it is designed. So be cognizant of the following usage guidelines. Use a full color logo only on a white background or a black background. Okay, so full color only goes on white or black background. You want to use an all white logo or an all black logo version if you have color backgrounds, if you are going to have collateral in black and white only, or if you have photos that are really busy. So you can see this photo here on the bottom has a black logo on it, because there's just so much going on in that photo that you don't want our color logo competing with that. So other things to consider, this is the please don't do this slide. We want the logos to like stay the same shape. So don't stretch it or alter it in any way. Don't redraw it. Don't change parts of the colors of it, like one of the half circles to a green, so they're both green. Don't put a drop shadow under it. Don't tilt it on its side. Don't put the color logo on a photo. So you can see here, this is a bad example, whereas the other one, it had a black logo on the sky. And then the last one is don't scooch it too close to other elements in the print or the design, because we want to make sure there's enough space around the logo. So it's really important to use our logo as specified so that it comes across as a professional brand. And we, again, have the high-res files on our website that you can download and access. Sometimes if like maybe your local chapter is going to sponsor an event or something, then people will ask for a specific kind of logo file, and you can get those logo files from a community at the link that we shared before. So a lot of our chapters have their own local presence, and they want to create materials that might specifically name their chapter to use at local events, which is great. We want to support that. We want to make sure you're able to recruit people in your community for your chapter. It is important, though, to maintain brand consistency. So like, we had a volunteer from Texas move to California, we would want CCL to look the same to them, right? Maybe a couple variations here or there. If there's a lot more Republicans in the Texas district, for example, they might use more of the conservative branding. But we really want CCL materials to look consistent across the organization. So the main objective of having these individual chapter logos is not to be individualized, right? It's not to stick out and be unique. It's to just, and it's not to infuse a special personality on the logo either. It's just to say like, oh, we're the Long Island chapter of CCL, or we're the Dallas Fort Worth chapter of CCL. It's just to signify which one we are, but it's not necessarily to try and stand out. The name of the chapter or the state, if it's going to be a state logo, because you can, we have like Florida likes to have, they have their own social media for the whole state, as well as some of the chapters individual in the state. So you can have, Port Charlotte chapter, or you could have Florida. That font is going to be Source Sans Pro, and we're going to get into the fonts in just a minute. The size of the font needs to be 2 point sizes smaller than the CCL and the logo, which sounds very technical, but I'm going to have a sheet for you in just a moment. And then you can decide if you want to have the word chapter in your name or not. So that's up to you. The name should be underneath the word mark, so the Citizens Climate Lobby. The distance of the width of the L in a logo symbol, and align the L from the baseline of Citizens Climate Lobby to the X height of the chapter state name. Very complicated sounding, okay? I'm only saying this to say to you that you don't need to know these things if you use our Canva templates for the logos, which we'll show you in more detail in a moment. So we've got a Canva template that you can access from community that is for updating your own logo version for your chapter. And so you don't need to know any of those things like font sizes or how far away to space things, because those things are already set up for you. Breanna did all that work for you. All you got to do is go in there and just change the name from chapter to whatever your chapter name is. And I'm just going to point out here, on the right side of the slide, we've got 2 green boxes. And so what we did here was, these are screenshots of from social media, from Instagram, of what it looks like when you're scrolling through and you see the little profile pictures from Instagram. This is what it looks like. On the right side, you can see that none of the profile pictures are using our standardized chapter logos. And so you can't really tell what those chapters are of, because it's kind of all over the place, different versions of our profile, our logo for the profile pictures. But for the chapters, I think it's Dallas, Fort Worth, and Florida, both have that particular chapter logo with the gray part underneath where their chapter name is in there. So now when we're just skimming across and seeing, you know, whatever it is that we're looking for, we can quickly see, oh, that's Florida, oh, that's Dallas, Fort Worth. So that's an example of where having that chapter logo as your profile picture on something like Instagram can really have a good impact. And I'll just throw in one other use case for this too. On social media, which is that some of you might have heard that Facebook was deactivating or banning some CCL chapter accounts. It was mostly just an algorithm problem. For whatever reason, some CCL chapter accounts, it looked like they were impersonating other accounts. Mainly they were impersonating CCL's account because they're a chapter of CCL, but the algorithm that is, you know, all the AI technology behind this couldn't differentiate that. But we had like maybe 15 or 20 different chapters. Their accounts got deactivated and then they had to appeal them, and it was like months long process. We ended up having to contact somebody at Facebook, and the only reason we contacted them in Facebook was because somebody in Jacksonville, Florida, a reporter picked up on this, that this was happening, and they thought it was like Facebook being anti-climate. So they wrote a story about it. And so then it was in the news. And then, so of course, Facebook's like, we got to respond. So we actually got in contact at that point with somebody from Facebook. And what he told me was this: if you've got a bunch of people using the same profile picture, sometimes that's a problem for the algorithm. So that's why your chapter profile photo on social media being unique to your chapter and not just being the CCL logo can help you from getting sucked into the AI problem and getting the algorithm thinking that you're an impersonating account. So that's one of the tips that we give in social media when you're doing chapter accounts, is to use these personalized logos for your chapter accounts.
All right, so we're just gonna go back to colors, go back even further to just the very basics, because I just want to help clarify what all these numbers and codes mean. And this is from that brand guidelines document. So don't feel like you have to memorize it or take a screenshot of this. But really briefly, that CMYK symbol, that stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And that's the color mode for print materials. So those are the inks that are used on printed materials, and they're blended together to make all those colors you see on paper. So if you're preparing a print file or a file that you're sending to a printer, or an event needs a logo that is specifically for print, that's when you pick something that is labeled with CMYK, or you use those color values. Sometimes those colors will look faded on your screen. That's just how that works, but don't worry, they will print out just fine. RGB, that stands for red, green, blue. These are the colors that our screens use to make all the colors we see on screen. So they're intended more for digital materials, but many professional printers can now still work with stuff that's in RGB mode. It's become pretty ubiquitous across a lot of the user-friendly design platforms like Canva. So don't worry too much if you've made a print file and you only have RGB or the hex codes available as your option. Our CCL colors are actually pretty similar across the CMYK and RGB color modes. That hex abbreviation there and that little number code, that means hexadecimal. It's the code for that color swatch, and that's what's used on the internet to represent color. So that code means that specific color, but a lot of programs like Google Docs, Slides, Microsoft Word, Canva offer the option to use that hex code. And it actually makes it a lot easier because you just have one thing you have to copy. So next slide. Just really briefly, this is what that will look like. You're just copying that number with the little hash pound sign. Drop that in there. You can use the RGB and hex pretty interchangeable, but the hex one is just a lot easier because it's just one thing you have to copy. So now touching on our fonts. Our primary font is Ubuntu. We have it in both regular or normal, those are the same thing, and bold weight. There's a lot of details about how to use the fonts in that brand guidelines PDF, but just generally, The bold one is for headlines. The regular one is for subheads. Our secondary font is Source Sans Pro Regular. This font is good for longer paragraphs of text because it's a little bit easier to read since the letters are a little more standard shapes. You notice in the other font, you know, the R looks a little different. There aren't sort of the little descender from like the U and stuff. So it's just easier to read Source Sans Pro in large paragraphs. And then the bold version is good for like section headings in a document. So to use these fonts, kind of what Ashley said, if you use our slides, if you use the templates, if you use the Canva templates, the fonts are there ready to go. You don't even have to think about it. But if you have a specific program you're using on your computer, something like PowerPoint even, you'll want to download and install the fonts on your computer. This video on the left, on the right, is just showing how you would download those fonts from Google Fonts. There are much more detailed instructions on Community on how to install a font on a PC or a Mac. Go to cclusa.org/font to find those instructions and the links to the fonts. Or if you're savvy with Google Fonts, just go there. Now on to the CCL's photo style. And I touched on this a little bit in the sub-branding. But like we said before, if you use the Google Slides, our doc templates, our Canva templates, there are already a lot of CCL approved images ready to go in there. But if you're customizing a template and you need more options, go to cclusa.org/photos. That will take you to a Google Drive folder with a whole bunch of subfolders of different photos you can download. They're organized by conference photos, chapter photos, and Capitol Hill stuff. And remember, our CCL photo style is optimistic, positive, warm, friendly, joyful, and engaged. Our photos should depict realistic scenes of people doing day-to-day stuff, interacting with other people when it's not a pandemic. And the photos should feel real and relatable because we're emphasizing human relationships. And when there are photos with people, we aim to have no less than 2 people in them. We also want to be sure diversity is considered in all aspects in our photos. So gender, age, ethnicity, body types, sexual orientation, abilities, economic background, interests. We just really want to make sure we're not showing the same thing over and over. So taking your own photos. So we really do encourage you to take photos of your chapter activities because it really does make it more personal and local. And people will see, oh, there is real stuff happening right here in my city. But as a volunteer, I know just how tricky it can be to get people to take good photos, but it's so worth it. So, and especially in DFW, we see a lot more engagement on the photos we post that include our real local volunteers. So a few tips for that. You want to aim for like waist up or close up framing, candid shots that feel natural and not posed if possible. It's not always possible. Maybe go for an interesting angle or point of view. Really try to avoid backlight or harsh lens flares, especially for selfies. So try to face like a window or natural lighting if you're taking a selfie. You want to go for a more narrow, medium depth of field so that the subjects are really that main focus, kind of like that trash pickup one. And then spice up those screenshots with the Canva templates. I know we're all getting really tired of Zoom screenshots, but those will still be happening into the future. So start making them more interesting by using our Canva templates. And then try to show context for your Zoom meeting. So maybe include your computer screen with your pets, like head sticking in there, kind of like the photo there. Or there's a view of nature kind of behind your screen, or you can see there's the hammock. You're sitting on a hammock with your device. Just try to show what's happening around it and not just a screenshot. A quick word about using other photos. Our CCL values are reflected in the images we pick. Remember, we're valuing integrity, and we only use Google Images for photos that we have permission to use. So something like headshots or a movie screening. We want to avoid using watermarked photos in our social media marketing. So, but if you see another chapter's photo that they took that you'd like to use, just ask them before reposting it. Our brand guide also includes some guidance about photos and some not so great examples of photos of what to avoid. But for images that convey climate change or emissions, we avoid images that are doom and gloom, fear-mongering, or putting a specific industry in a negative light. We're focusing on solutions, innovation, future, and what we want to preserve. So when you can't find a CCL-approved photo that fits and you don't have your own photo, you can check out the free options. There's some free ones on Canva. You can go to pixabay.com, unsplash.com, or pexels.com, and there's some really good options with the Creative Commons licensing that you can use in your work for free. We have CCL branded icons. You saw some of them were animated and are little Giphy stickers. We use these to enhance and call attention to key components that reinforce our brand, especially when a photo isn't the right fit for it. So our brand guide gives some guidance. This is part of our brand guide that shows which icons fit what specific messages you're trying to convey. And I know it's a little harder to tell on this slide, but our icons are overlapping and they're semi-transparent. So just be aware of that when you're using them on top of photos or on colors, that the color will shine through that icon just a little bit. And moving on to messaging and values and tone with Ashley.
Yes, so I'm going to fly through this because we are running out of time. So I mentioned this before, our brand isn't just fonts and colors and logos and icons. It goes beyond that, and it also informs what we say and how we say it. So what else is branding? These are our 4 brand pillars. So we want to keep these in mind when we're crafting messages or talking points, when we're trying to talk about CCL or the bill or what it is that we do. So we're focused on a big solution, we're relationship driven, we're nonpartisan, and we're effective. So what do those translate into what we do? So we show that we're focused on a big solution by being consistent. We regularly reinforce our main message. We show that we're relationship driven by being thoughtful and considering other viewpoints. We show that we're nonpartisan by being approachable and optimistic and easy to talk to. We show that we're effective by being polished, prepared, persistent, polite. So this kind of is part of our branding too, right? That demonstrates who we are. We also demonstrate who we are through the tone of voice. So when we talk or write, we don't have too many rules, but we want to try and have people keep it true to yourself, keep it simple, keep it upbeat and straightforward. And then we've got this graph. This last chart is available in the brand guidelines. So there's some do's and don'ts with the tone that we recommend that you check out. There's also a great presentation that Leslie Beatty did a couple of weeks ago on messaging for the Energy Innovation Act specifically. So different ways to talk about different things about the bill. And that's available on Community. So I recommend checking that out. And then we just have a couple best practices to wrap this all up.
Check community first. We're going to adopt the mindset like you're prepping for lobby day. You check community first for the latest primary ask. So you want to check community before you make anything from scratch. There's so much stuff out there. I know group leaders, liaisons, we have tons of stuff to remember, but check community first. Check it once, check it twice, check it even a third time, then ask someone if you still can't find what you're looking for. It is probably there. So when you can't find what you're looking for, try narrowing your search. There are some filters within the search function that help you can find specific resources or ones that are group files. We know we've been saying over and over, use the templates, but that doesn't mean we don't want you to customize them for your needs. And Canva makes that really easy to do. One thing I highly recommend is making evergreen content. I've learned that as being a volunteer, you don't always have time to update every graphic every time. Evergreen means that the text and graphics can stay fresh and not be out of date after one use. So like saying the 3rd Monday of the month, or saying something like in 2018 instead of 3 years ago. Saying in 2018 will last a lot longer and you won't have to update that every year. Ashley has one final tip for us.
Yeah, so the last best practice would be that if you want to share something that you've created using our branding guidelines or the Canva templates, or you maybe kind of freshened it up a little bit, you can share that on CCL community, or if you have questions about these resources or how to use them. So specifically, if you're trying to create some digital assets for social media, we've got the social media action team, which is a Facebook group and also on community. And you could, share your assets there or ask questions there. And then if it's if you're part of like an action team, or it's a lever specific asset that you're making, you can share that on the lever specific site-wide forums. So if it's for outreach, you can share that in the outreach forums. So I think that's the last best practice.
Thank you so much, Ashley and Breanna, for an amazing presentation tonight. Incredibly in-depth, incredibly focused, and really walking all of us through how to really best leverage and use the existing resources that we have for our own outreach. If any of you on the line want to follow up with ongoing questions, I recommend going to CCL Communities Forums. The website's listed right here. It's just cclusa.org/forums as well, or joining our social media action team. Both of those are excellent opportunities for you to be able to jump in and find out more information that you might be curious about. The quick link for the social media action team is just cclusa.org/CCL, all capital letters, social. And these are available here on this slide here too. So for tonight, we hope you found tonight's training useful and empowering. We look forward to hearing about how you're using these resources in your own outreach. And keep up the great work out there, everyone. Stay safe. Have a wonderful night. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration. And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.